Event. In the philosophy of Deleuze, the word event is used in two very different contexts. One is the concept of event associated with the ups and downs of life or the worlds, and the other is the one associated with the sense of sign. Although Deleuze did not tell it apart explicitly, we can further propose to distinguish the former into two concepts. One is an inflection point. An individual's life before and after this inflection point can never be the same. It is something that serves as a momentum to say, it was an event of my lifetime. It's like the event Jabusky suffered gunshot wounds, or the event of Ahab's encounter with Moby Dick. We may as well call them existential events, though this concept is not the one used by Deleuze. The other one is an event as a bifurcation point at which something is bifurcated into two very disparate worlds. A good example would be the event of Adam's having picked the apple. It is a bifurcation point of two divided worlds. The world Adam ate the apple, and the one he hadn't done so. A new world that is incompatible with the world given begins there. This, of course, is similar to an existential event in that two worlds don't exist separately at one time, but one world is divided into two before and after the event. However, it is different in that what changes at this bifurcation point is not an individual's life, but a world. That's because this bifurcation point is not only for Aiden's life, but also for those of other people. For convenience, this may be called an event between the worlds. In line with the Deleuzian-Leibnizian expression, the world is a fold folded in the soul, we can say an existential event is the one a new world emerges in the soul, whereas an event between the worlds is the one where a new world is born between the existing souls. You may say it is the event that new souls are born by folding new folds incompatible with the existing souls into them. There's another important difference between these two events. An event between the worlds is the one the effect that any individual or group within its orbit can hardly escape from willing or not. On the other hand, when it comes to an existential event, it is whether you accept it in the affirmative or not that distinguishes between an accident that you would be better off without and the event that you were better off with. This is true in the case of Jabusky cited by Deleuze. In the beginning, the gunshot wound was an unfortunate accident that made him have no choice but to spend his whole life in bed. However, it makes him an excellent poet who thinks about the depth of being. The moment the poet accepts his life in the affirmative, the accident that made him bedridden gets to be accepted in the affirmative as a starting point of the positive life. Now, it becomes a positive inflection point that he was better off with. This would have called this elevation of the past in contrast to resentment against the past. The affirmation of the present life saved the past. Unlike this, there is a concept of event that is paired with sense on one hand and singularity on the other hand. It should be noted here that this concept of event is not about a grand event that changes something significantly like the previous ones, but a small event of a minimum size, and not about an unprecedented event, but an uncommonly recurring event. It is a concept of event that has different grain from the word event, which is used grandiosely. This concept of event may well be contrasted to Heidegger's concept of ontological awareness, that is the biggest event making a raid on our lives, or Badia's concept of an unprecedented event that comes about in the void of being. To put it in advance, Deleuze defines event as becoming. As becoming takes place everywhere, every moment, the concept of event as becoming should hold every event, whether it's unusual or ordinary. Rather, even the usual ones should be defined through unusual or singular. This is why Deleuze seeks to define even ordinary events through singularity. Surprisingly, Deleuze pushes this concept of small event to the ethical choice of eternal return. What Deleuze digs into intensively in the logic of sense is exactly this concept of small event. Here, the sense of sign or words is an event. An event is defined as a singularity, namely the serialization of facts that are singular points. If you say soccer ball when you see a flying soccer ball, it is correct but nothing but a mere tautology. Conversely, you might say that thing flying over there to mean the soccer ball. This is the concept of meaning from the viewpoint of representation. However, no matter how much you concentrate on the soccer ball and think about its meaning repeatedly, It can hardly be said that you're watching a soccer game. You're just looking at the flying ball, not knowing the sense of the flying ball at all. To understand the sense of the flying ball, you need to see its neighbors connected to it, the players at the front and rear of the ball. In case both the kicker and the receiver of the ball are Korean players, the sense of the flying ball is passing. However, if the receiver is a German player, that is to say, if serialized as Korean player, ball, German player, the sense becomes mistake in passing. If the ball is flying toward the goalpost, the sense of the ball will be shooting. And if the ball is inside the goalpost, the sense will be goal. What if the ball is inside the goalpost after Korean player wearing gloves touches the ball? Yes, the sense is an own goal. This is event at sense. In the case of soccer game, it can be said that an event takes place with every kick. If you recognize the event, you get to understand the sense of the flying ball. When you can recognize the difference between the senses, you will get to watch a soccer game, not seeing a ball. The same goes for playing a soccer game. Playing soccer means making such events one after another. A soccer game is another event made by the gathering of small events such as passing, shooting, goal, etc. A soccer ball is a physical entity, whereas a sense is an event that occurs depending on the neighbor attached to the surface of it. The ball as a physical entity has different senses like this depending on the neighbor. Facts are the corporeal, whereas events are not the corporeal but what arises on the surface of a body. Therefore, an event is referred to as the surface effect of a body. In other words, sense is neither the product of intention as the phenomenologists say, nor what belongs to the designated thing as the realists say. It is a surface effect that results from the serialization of things. It is an event that occurs between subjectivity and materiality on the surface of matter. Event is defined by singularity, passing, mistaken passing, shooting, goal, and on goal all refer to disparate singularities. These singularities are defined by the weights of the serializations of the ball, the player, and the goalpost. The ball, the player, and the goalpost are singular points. When we say that a sense is an event, and an event is a singularity, we exactly mean this. But to be more accurate, we have to write what is an ideal event. It is a singularity. In other words, for Deleuze, an event is an ideal event. Then, the next question should be what an ideal event is. This concept is indeed the gate to the inside of the Deleuzean concept of event. The concept of idea added to the word event here is the one presented in difference and repetition. As explicated previously, contrary to the grand concept of idea that integrates everything, it is idea as question and problem, differential idea of minimum size, or idea as virtuality. Herein, the virtuality has indetermination, determinability, and complete determination, and is actualized in combination with the outside conditions. In the logic of sense, Deleuze develops the concept of ideal event by combining this concept of idea with that of event. Another thing to keep in mind is this concept of idea carries out the function of unity, which was performed by generality or universality in the previous philosophies. Let's go back to the story of soccer. The way events such as passing or mistake and passing is defined as singularity was by differential relation, meaning neighboring relation. Passing or mistake and passing defined this way is not just a one-time event in a particular situation, but the one that repeatedly occurs everywhere in soccer games. It definitely has a kind of universality, though it of course is actualized differently in each situation. It is microscopic set that makes up different soccer games on each occasion. It is an atom of soccer game. In the sense, singularity belongs to a different layer than a particular physically embodied game. It belongs not to actuality, but to virtuality. The singularities surrounding the ball such as passing, mistaken passing, shooting, and goal are sense units that make up a soccer game. It can be said that they are minimum articulation units of sense, compared to the phoneme of phonemics, or the morpheme of semantics in linguistics. They are the minimum sense units with complete determination. A larger scale event is made by the combination of these sense units into a reciprocal relation. Playing a soccer game means asking how to interweave these small events. It is about problematizing these singular events whenever a kick is made and whenever a tactic or a strategy is made. The mode of the event is the problematic. An attack, for example, is about asking the problem of how to connect the passings and the shooting to lead to a goal and looking for the answer to it. A game is about asking the problem of how to organize these attacks and defenses and searching for the answer. To solve these problems means to get the answer by analyzing the skills of my team and the opponent and considering the specific conditions of that day. Of course, an event, even at the level of minimum size, is a problem. That's because doing a passing is asking and answering yourself where and how to pass. This event of the minimum size is precisely the idle event. Even though passing is a microscopic event, it is hardly said to be minimum size. It of course is indeterminate in that it is not yet combined with other events such as falling, passing, or shooting, but it has a complete determination in itself. That's because a passing is neither a shooting nor a mistaken passing. However, if you go back to the event of the minimum size or the pure virtuality, you reach the moment when whether to pass the ball in front of the feet or the shooting is not yet determined. In other words, you should go back to the indetermination where whether to pass or shoot is not yet determined, and to the ball that is not yet serialized with any neighboring foot. But even then, it doesn't mean returning to the thing, the ball. It's going back not to the ball, but the event that the ball enters into relation with its neighbors. There are forces that will be applied to the surface of the ball, like whether to kick the ball outside or toward the face of the referee, not to mention passing or shooting. There exists an event-making force that makes all the events. It has numerous determinabilities that will vary according to the magnitude and direction of the force. It may be said that it is an indeterminate event open to countless events. It is the event that may be said to be the embryo of all events, the event as pure virtuality. There exists a void space between the ball and its neighbor which contains nothing. Deleuze calls this pure virtuality that doesn't have any determination yet but is open to all events and all neighbors, one and the same event. It is an event that makes all events communicate. This pure event, which Deleuze capitalizes deliberately, is the one that doesn't have anything in itself. It is a virtual event that exists between all the neighbors. It is an event of the minimum size, which is as small as the differential. There exists the void space of the indetermination open to all determinations, and the nonsense open to all senses of events. The same can be said not only between the two things, but also between two states of a thing. It's an event like growth that occurs between larger and smaller states. Pure becoming, referring at the beginning of the logic of science, means a pure event of the smallest size that occurs between two states. This event resembles the differential dx of the differential theory that makes the magnitude and direction of every force expressed, but doesn't have any determination for himself. When entering into a differential relation with the magnitude and direction of the force to be applied to the ball, and the moving speed of the landing point of the ball, etc., this differential event turns into a specific reciprocal determination. And that determination is drawn as a problem of where and how to kick to lead this situation to a goal. And the moment the specific conditions such as the weight of the ball, the wind, the position and speed of the opponent player who will intervene in the path of the ball are taken into account, a passing is physically actualized. It is also said that it is effectuated as an actual reality. The moment the ball is kicked, the ball is already pulling the landing point which has yet to reach towards surface. It has already become a physical event. Every time a player kicks a ball, he throws a problem which event. However, all those problems also mean one question: how to kick the ball. This is one and the same question that every player should cast every time he kicks the ball. This question, of course, is not cast separately or independently. It's always drawn as a problem because it is always drawn under the conditions surrounding the ball, such as the positions of the players, the location of the goalpost, and empty space to move through, etc. Just as there is an indeterminate event of the minimum size before the idle events, such as passing and shooting, etc., there is evidently one and the same question that should be always cast before the problem, which is drawn under a specific condition. When this question is cast, the ball that has not yet kicked is surrounded by the possibility of numerous events. The question of how to kick also means which event to kick toward. Deleuze calls the set of the numberless landing points that will be connected to the ball by kicking a aleatory point. All of the numberless determinable events are the elements of a set of aleatory points. One single event surrounded by the elements of a aleatory point is the virtual embryo of all the events. Not only does an actualized event have a definitive determination, but it usually even has evaluations such as success and failure, good and bad, etc. Hard-linked passing and a good shooting that leads to a goal are applauded, but unskillful passing is booed and the foul is blamed. Nevertheless, the soccer game continues, and kicking towards new events continues. Though it was a point in shooting which made the nice passing come to nothing, the player runs toward the ball saying, okay, but once again. Because aleatory point includes the smallest time of our consciousness can grasp, the ball kicked by the player to solve the problem is surrounded by unexpected possibilities. Therefore, even if there is a high chance of failure, an outstanding player runs across probability towards a new repetition of events. It is the throwing of a dice towards aleatory points surrounding the ball and towards an event as pure virtuality. Same goes for everything. It's the same with live and revolution too. Throwing a dice towards a new aleatory point of becoming event regardless of the chance of success, that is the dice play of eternal return. This is why Deleuze repeatedly says about event in which nothing occurs.